right now, someone is standing in front of one of the great wonders of the world, and they turn their back to it. Not because the view isn't breathtaking, but because the photo matters more than the moment. That single image tells you almost everything you need to know about the psychology of a toxic person in the digital age. In the next few minutes, you will find out why your brain treats that follow button like a literal survival mechanism. Why a breakup with this kind of person doesn't feel like ordinary sadness, but like withdrawal from a drug, running on the exact same circuitry as a slot machine. Why you keep walking down the aisles of their profile with a grocery bag, filling it with things you know will hurt you, and why your nervous system actually prefers that predictable misery over uncertain safety. And finally, how to pull the tooth and take away their bite, with a tactical framework that starts with the one move your ego will beg you not to make. But first, let's paint the picture, because we have all been in this exact room. It's late. The house is totally quiet. The only light hitting your face is that cold blue glow of your phone screen. Your thumb is just hovering over the app, and your chest gets tight. Your breathing gets shallow, almost like a panic response. And before your rational brain can even hit the brakes, you're looking at it. You're looking at the profile of the person who caused you catastrophic psychological pain, the toxic ex, the former friend, the manipulative family member. And there it is, right at the top of the feed. A brand new, perfectly filtered picture. 2 glasses of wine clinking against a sunset, and a caption that just sucks all the air right out of your lungs. Something like, "After a lifetime of grey, I finally see colour. I found my twin flame." It feels like a physical blow to the stomach. It's this tiny millisecond of digital information that manages to wipe out months or even years of hard-won psychological healing. And the craziest part of all of this is the cognitive dissonance, because logically, you know this person is highly toxic. You know the post is a heavily constructed manipulation. You know they are just performing a script for an audience, yet you cannot look away. You are paralyzed. Basically letting a digital ghost dictate your physical heart rate in the present moment. It's terrifying when you really break it down. It's the ultimate modern paradox. You are sitting there doing something you know is going to cause you immense pain, but you feel completely powerless to stop your own thumb. So why is this trap so neurologically sticky? To answer that, we have to understand the environment that birthed this specific type of psychological warfare. Because to understand why checking up on a toxic person is exactly what they expect you to do, we have to look at how the entire landscape of human attention fundamentally mutated. We have to look at the meteor that hit our collective psychology, and to appreciate the impact of that meteor, we need to examine the dinosaurs that were walking around before it hit. If you trace the history of attention-seeking behaviour, you see this slow creeping evolution. Go back to the 1940s, the invention of shows like Candid Camera. That was the very first seed planted in the culture. The idea that everyday normal people could be observed for entertainment. But it was highly contained. It was a prank. The person on camera was just the butt of the joke. They were totally unaware they were being filmed until the big reveal. You didn't control the narrative. You were a passive participant. But fast forward 50 years and the psychology shifts dramatically. The 1990s hit and we get the MTV era. We get the real world, which was a massive, unprecedented paradigm shift in human behavior. For the first time, you didn't need a discernible talent to be famous. You didn't need to be an Olympic athlete or a trained actor or some brilliant musician. You just had to be willing to behave badly on camera. The more dramatic, conflict-driven and toxic your behaviour was, the more screen time you got. It created a direct reward system for toxicity. You scream at your roommate, you throw a drink in someone's face, you sleep with your best friend's partner, you get a magazine cover, you get a lucrative club appearance deal, and the audience just ate it up. That cultural shift set the stage for a real crisis. It trained an entire generation to view bad behaviour as a valid currency for status. But prior to 2003, that currency was still hard to print. If you had a highly grandiose, manipulative, attention-seeking personality, picture a classic 1960s Don Draper type character, someone deeply arrogant, lacking empathy, and desperate for admiration. Getting what psychologists call narcissistic supply required manual labor. Narcissistic supply is basically the emotional oxygen for a toxic personality. It's the attention, the admiration, the fear, or even the anger that they extract from other people. And they use that to prop up their own incredibly fragile self-esteem. Without a constant stream of that external reaction, that supply, their ego just collapses. So, pre-internet, getting that emotional oxygen was a real grind. You actually had to take a shower, put on a suit, leave your house, and physically corner someone at a cocktail party or the office water cooler. You had to actively manipulate the people in your immediate physical vicinity just to get a tiny little hit of validation, because your audience was geographically restricted. They were limited to their immediate family, their exhausted co-workers, and their small social circle. It was a backwater clinical phenomenon. If you had one of these people in your family, you knew they were exhausting, but their blast radius was contained by time and physical space. And then the meteor hits, the extinction level event for the old way of living. 2003 brings the launch of platforms like MySpace. 2004 brings Facebook. Suddenly the blast radius is global. Think about the timeline here. There's a highly specific anecdote that captures this exact transition moment perfectly. Picture a late night in 2007. The house is completely silent. A person gets a message from a friend saying, "Hey, have you seen this new website where you can look up people from high school?" So they log on, and at first it's just this fascinating novelty. They spend 30 minutes poking around, checking in on the mean girls from their hometown, seeing who got married, who moved away. It's a completely relatable entry point. We were all captivated by the ability to peek over the fence into other people's backyards without them knowing. But as this person kept scrolling through the early iterations of the newsfeed, a deep, sickening realization started to wash over them. They were watching adults post pictures of a cake they just baked or the outfit they put on to go to a local bar. Completely mundane, ordinary, everyday tasks. And beneath these pictures were constant streams of likes, emojis, and comments. It was daily, continuous applause for simply existing. And the realization in that moment wasn't just, oh, this is a fun way to share photos. The realization was, oh no, the most toxic, manipulative people on earth are going to use this infrastructure to build empires. It dawned on them that this technology was the perfect frictionless delivery system for narcissistic supply. It meant that in this new digital ecosystem, the people who were willing to curate, perform, and exploit their personal lives for attention were going to win. Which brings us back to that meteor. Think of the advent of these digital platforms as a technological meteor striking the Earth. In a normal extinction event, the predators are the first to die out because the food chain collapses. But in this case, the highly toxic, attention-seeking personality type was the one species that actually thrived in the post-meteor ash. They evolved rapidly. So did this technology actually create a new breed of toxic people? Or did it just hand the existing ones a global megaphone? Well, it's the ultimate accelerant. While it certainly normalized self-obsessed behavior for everyone, its primary function was taking a contained clinical pathology and turning it into a heavily rewarded lifestyle. It poured gas on the fire. Imagine if brilliant engineers were tasked with designing a machine specifically to feed a grandiose ego. A machine that delivers validation 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, from a limitless pool of strangers. That machine is exactly what we carry in our pockets. Validation on tap. You don't have to put on the suit or go to the cocktail party anymore. You don't have to face the friction of real human interaction where someone might actually roll their eyes at your bragging or challenge your grandiosity. You have total, unyielding control over the narrative. And that absolute control brings us to the core of what they are actually building with this global megaphone. If their entire online existence is a curated lie, what exactly is the structure of that lie? They are constructing the false self. And we need to understand this false self, because understanding it is the key to escaping the trap. Toxic individuals essentially live for one primary purpose: to induce envy in others. That is their lifeblood. And the mechanism they use to induce that envy today is the total commodification of normal life. Everything becomes a strategy for supply. It is the influencer mindset applied to an incredibly mundane existence. What they eat for breakfast, a prank they play on their spouse, or even their child's private emotional meltdown. It is all packaged, filtered, and blasted out in this desperate hunt for the sheer power of having an audience. The visual absurdity of this behaviour is just staggering when you break it down. Consider this specific image. Picture someone travelling halfway across the world. They spend thousands of dollars to fly to Paris. They hike the Great Wall of China. They travel to the most pristine, isolated beach on Earth. They're standing in front of a monument of human engineering or breathtaking natural beauty. And what do? They turn their back to it. They literally turn their back to the wonder of the world. They hold up their phone, angle the camera down so their jawline looks sharp, and they snap a selfie. That image is a perfect encapsulation of the false self in action. The actual lived experience of feeling the breeze on that beach or marvelling at the historical scale of the Great Wall means absolutely nothing to them. They are completely dissociated from the physical present. The joy of the experience is zero. But the proof of the experience, the image they can broadcast to induce envy and extract supply, that means everything. Now, you might be feeling a little defensive right now. Isn't it just fundamental human nature to want to share our highlight reels? If I finally get a promotion, or I take a nice vacation, or my toddler finally sleeps through the night and I post a picture of my coffee cup saying I survived, how is that inherently toxic? Where is the line between normal human connection and building this dark false self? That is the vital distinction, and it all comes down to intent and internal reality. There is absolutely a healthy, connective way to use these tools, sharing a major life milestone, staying in touch with widely scattered family members, finding a support community for a rare chronic illness. That is genuine human connection. The line is crossed when sharing becomes perpetrating. And that word implies an attack, because it is an emotional attack, albeit a very covert one. The toxic person isn't sharing to connect. They are sharing to posture, to demean, to stalk, and to trigger insecurity in the viewer. But the deepest psychological tell of the toxic person, the true hallmark of the false self, is that they live in two entirely separate, conflicting realities: the digital reality and the physical reality. There is the flawless, hyper-curated fictional reality they post online to induce envy. And then there is their actual day-to-day unedited physical reality. And those two realities cannot possibly match up. Never. Because nobody's real life looks like a filtered sunset 24 hours a day. And because of that massive, unbridgeable gap between their fictional life and their real life, the toxic person exists in a chronic, unyielding state of quiet rage. Imagine the psychology of sitting on your couch, scrolling through the flawless avatar of your own life that you just presented to the world, and then looking up and seeing your messy living room, your normal spouse, your average bank account. They are furious that the universe isn't spontaneously delivering the super fabulous, friction-free life they feel entirely entitled to. They created the fantasy, they sold it to the public, and now they are deeply angry that they actually have to live in the real boring world. And what do they do with that simmering, resentful frustration? They take it out on the people closest to them, offline. They punish their partners, their children, their employees. They punish reality for not matching their fiction. It's deeply unsettling to think about someone sitting in a quiet room, raging at their spouse simply because the reality of doing laundry doesn't match the hashtag they just posted. And this creates a unique danger for how we, the audience, consume this content. If I flip open a glossy fashion magazine and I see a model stepping out of a luxury car, my brain instantly categorizes that image as a paid advertisement. I know there's a lighting crew, a makeup artist, a retoucher. I don't look at that and think my own life is so much worse by comparison. But that crucial psychological firewall completely collapses when we scroll our social feeds. We look at these highly curated, fictionalized posts from people we consider peers, neighbors, or acquaintances, and our brains categorize the information as reality, which creates a population-wide crisis of self-doubt. You have incredibly vulnerable populations, teenagers, trying to figure out their identities, people struggling with clinical depression, new mothers feeling overwhelmed, people going through a painful divorce. And they are looking at these fictional bulletin boards and thinking, everyone else has it figured out. I am the only one failing at life. You see the matching holiday pajamas, the flawless family gatherings, the amazing career milestones. And in your weakest moments, you forget it is a theatre of the absurd. You swallow the poison, which is exactly why these platforms are the toxic individual's mothership. They construct their false self specifically to farm your insecurity, to feed their ego. So, if their entire online existence is a curated lie designed to extract supply, what happens when the real-world foundation crumbles? What happens when those offline relationships finally buckle under the weight of that quiet rage? That's where things get explosive. Let's look at the exact moment a toxic relationship ends, because this is where that curated lie becomes a highly calibrated weapon. We need to walk into the post-breakup minefield. And here we intentionally need to slow the pace down. If you have lived through this specific type of relational trauma, the memory of it isn't just in your head, it's stored in your central nervous system. The immediate aftermath of a toxic breakup is a period of intense, blinding cognitive dissonance. Your rational brain, the logical prefrontal cortex, knows exactly why the relationship had to end. You remember the gaslighting, the circular arguments that went nowhere, the deceit, the bone-deep exhaustion. You know you are objectively better off without them, but your body does not know that. The emotional center of your brain is dealing with a phenomenon known as a trauma bond. And we really need to explain the neurology here, because understanding the biology removes the shame. A trauma bond is created by cycles of intermittent reinforcement. It's the exact same psychological mechanism that makes slot machines so addictive. If a slot machine paid out every single time, it would be boring. If it never paid out, you would just walk away. It's the unpredictable nature of the reward that hooks the brain. In a toxic relationship, you experience intense highs, the love bombing phase where they mirror all your hopes and dreams, followed abruptly by devastating lows, the devalue and discard phases, the silent treatments, the cruel criticisms. This cycle literally hijacks your dopamine and cortisol pathways. Your brain gets flooded with stress hormones during the fight and then desperately craves the dopamine rush of the reconciliation. So when the relationship abruptly ends, your brain doesn't just feel sad, like a normal breakup. It goes into severe chemical withdrawal. It is starving for the chemical high of the reconciliation phase that usually follows the abuse. And right at that exact moment of ultimate neurological vulnerability, when you are literally shaking from withdrawal, you open the app and you are hit with the illusion of the instant rebound. The quickest rebound in human history. The ashes of your shared life aren't even cold yet, and they are out there broadcasting to the world. They are at a hotspot, they are skydiving, they are at the party, and they are posting pictures with a brand new, attractive target. And the captions are designed with surgical precision to destroy your sense of reality. After a lifetime of grey, I finally see colour. Or the ultimate red flag, I finally found my soulmate, my twin flame. They are claiming a depth of spiritual, cosmic connection in 4 days that you couldn't reach in 4 years of trying to communicate with them. That caption is a psychological punch in the chest. It's meant to completely invalidate your shared history. It's designed to make you question your own worth. But then you look closer at the visual cues, and this is where the behaviour reveals its true insidious nature. You look at the photos of this new twin flame and you realise something horrifying. It's the exact same script. It's like watching a bad magician perform a cheap card trick you already know the secret to. You're watching them perform the identical love-bombing routine on the new person. They're taking them to the same obscure beach you went to on your first trip. They're eating at the same sunset restaurant where they first told you they loved you. They're using the exact same pet names. Your rational brain is sitting in the audience screaming, "The cards are marked, it's a trick." But your emotional, trauma-bonded brain feels deeply, desperately left out of the show. That visceral yearning for the illusion is called euphoric recall. It's a critical survival mechanism in the brain that completely backfires during a breakup. Seeing the new person receive the shiny, exciting, attentive love bomb treatment triggers a selective amnesia in your mind. Your brain literally edits out the bad parts. It scrubs the tape. You suddenly forget the screaming matches, the times they abandoned you, the lies you caught them in. Your brain only remembers the golden period at the very beginning of your relationship. And euphoric recall tricks you into believing that the toxic person is suddenly capable of sustaining that gold forever with someone else. You start telling yourself the most dangerous lie of all. They saved the best version of themselves for the new person. I must have been the problem all along. And right here is where you need to focus. Listen carefully. They have not changed for the new person. They are biologically and psychologically incapable of changing their core architecture just because they found a new partner. You're just seeing the system reboot, a rigid, mechanical cycle. Love bomb, devalue, discard. It is a closed loop. If anyone saw the pictures from the first month of your relationship with them, it would look utterly identical to the pictures they are posting now. So the new partner is not getting a happily ever after. They haven't won a prize. They are just stepping onto the exact same roller coaster you just barely survived, blindfolded, with no idea that the tracks drop off a cliff. So far, we've been talking about the loud, grandiose tactic, the instant twin flame rebound. But there's a more covert tactic we need to look at: the vulnerable trap. The vulnerable or covert tactician plays a completely different, often more confusing game. Instead of posting about their amazing new life and making you jealous, they post passive-aggressive, highly victimized content to make you feel guilty. They will post vague, melancholy quotes like, "Don't you hate it when you give someone your all and they abandon you when you need them most?" Or they will post sad songs or write these long paragraphs about how cruel the world is to people with big, trusting hearts, which is absolutely maddening, because you know they were the ones who systematically ruined the relationship with their abuse. But they put that bait out there, and all their enablers, the people who don't know the real story behind closed doors, flock to the comments. "Oh honey, you deserve so much better. People are so toxic. Stay strong." And that triggers a different kind of neurological trap for you. It triggers your deep-seated empathy and guilt. Even if you were the one who finally found the strength to end the cycle, seeing them play the wounded bird makes you feel responsible for their pain. It makes you want to break no contact just to defend the truth, or paradoxically, to comfort the person who abused you. Which leads us to the most frustrating contradiction of human nature. If we know it's all an illusion, if we know the cards are marked, if we know the victim routine is a trap, why do we peek behind the curtain? Why are we magnetically drawn to looking at the very digital feeds that are actively destroying our nervous systems? This brings us to the concept of pain shopping. Visualize the literal translation of that term. Imagine taking a large canvas grocery bag, opening up this toxic person's digital profile, and actively walking down the aisles of their life. You are purposely pulling items off the shelf, a photo here, a comment there, and putting them in your bag, knowing that every single item is going to cause you intense emotional distress. You are literally shopping for your own pain. You sit there, hands shaking, heart racing, and you hit refresh. What are we even looking for in that grocery store? We are looking for a resolution that does not exist. We are looking for proof that they are miserable without us to validate our worth. Or we are looking for proof that they are happy so we can finally justify our anger and finalize the grief. But the fundamental insight here, the reason we shop for pain, is that the human brain prefers predictable misery over uncertain safety. Predictable misery over uncertain safety. Sit with that for a second, because that is a massive realization. The nervous system hates the void. It hates not knowing. When you go no contact, you are in the void. You don't know what they are doing, who they are with, or what they are thinking. And that uncertainty feels terrifying to a trauma-bonded brain. So you look at their page to get a hit of information. Even if the information makes you miserable, it is predictable misery. Confirming that they are terrible feels safer to your nervous system than sitting in the terrifying silence of not knowing. But the brutal reality of pain shopping is that it is a zero-sum game. No matter what they post, you will not leave that page feeling good. You always lose. Let's break down the two scenarios. Scenario 1. They post a happy photo, they're at a party, they look amazing, they're with the new partner. What happens? It ruins your day, if not your entire week. Your self-worth plummets. You feel completely inadequate, easily replaced, and forgotten. Scenario 2. They post something bad. Let's say they post that they got into a minor car accident, or they broke their leg, or they complain about getting fired from their job. Does that give you closure? Does it give you that petty satisfaction you thought you were looking for? For a fleeting microsecond, maybe. But if you have an empathetic core, which is almost certainly why you were targeted by this type of person in the first place, your empathy is instantly weaponized against you. You see they are hurt, and your natural instinct kicks in. Oh no, they're in the hospital. Their family won't help them. Maybe I should just send a quick text to make sure they're okay. And just like that, the jaws of the trap snap shut. You get sucked right back into the toxic dynamic, feeling sorry for the person who traumatized you. So happy posts destroy your self-esteem, and sad posts weaponize your empathy. You literally cannot win because the game is rigged. And here's the most crucial piece of psychology you need to internalize about the toxic person's relationship with social media. They assume you are watching. Even if you haven't liked a post, viewed a story, or commented in 6 months, even if you are a completely silent, invisible ghost, they absolutely, unequivocally assume you are watching. They live their entire lives as a performance for an audience, and you are the VIP in their mind's eye when they want to inflict pain or extract supply. Therefore, you must operate under the assumption that many of their posts are highly intentional, crafted specifically with you in mind. That picture at your favourite restaurant? That wasn't a coincidence. That was a homing missile aimed right at your trauma bond. If they know you always wanted to go to a specific hotel in Hawaii and suddenly they take the new partner to that exact hotel on week 2, that is a message. If they use a specific obscure phrase in a caption that was an inside joke between the two of you, that is a hook. They are baiting the water, waiting for you to bite. Now, let me ask a really vulnerable question, because you might be feeling a tremendous amount of shame right now. We know it's hurting us. We know they are baiting the hook. But the urge to check is so chemically overwhelming that people make fake anonymous accounts just to bypass the blocks and spy on their exes, creating a burner persona just to watch their stories without showing up in the viewer list. It happens a lot. So when we engage in that kind of obsessive behaviour, does that make us the toxic one? Does the victim become the narcissist? Let's clear the air and alleviate that shame immediately. Listen to this very carefully. Going down a dark rabbit hole with a fake account in a moment of extreme weakness and emotional withdrawal does not make you a narcissist. It doesn't mean you have a personality disorder. It means you are a human being in the throes of a severe trauma bond, desperately seeking safety through information. The shame of creeping on an ex's page can almost compound the pain of the breakup. You feel like a stalker. You feel crazy. It's completely normal to feel that shame. But you have to separate your reactive behaviour from their core pathology. The toxic person stalks and manipulates to control, to demean and to secure supply. You are looking because your brain is desperately trying to make sense of an entirely senseless, traumatising end to a relationship. However, and there is a massive however, just because it doesn't make you a toxic person does not mean it is acceptable for your healing. It is an act of real self-harm. You are actively participating in your own psychological destruction. You have to recognise that the platform is a drug. It is a highly engineered delivery system for the exact chemicals your trauma bond is craving. And every single view, every 5-second peek at their profile is a relapse. A 5-second peek can ruin a month of healing. You can wake up feeling great, feeling that the fog has finally lifted. You have your morning coffee, the sun is shining, and then you slip up. You look, and by 9 a.m, your stomach is in knots, your head is pounding, you're crying, and you are back at square one. Which is why we have to move from understanding the problem to tactical defence. Since we cannot change how they behave, since we cannot make them suddenly develop empathy, since we cannot stop them from posting the sunset pictures with the new partner, since we cannot control the homing missiles, we must entirely, radically alter how we interact with their digital presence. We have to starve the feed. We have to turn off the toxic TV. There's a brilliant analogy for this. Taking away a toxic person's audience is exactly like pulling a wisdom tooth. When you pull the tooth, you take away their bite. You take away the very mechanism they use to inflict pain and chew up your peace of mind. When you remove yourself as an audience member, you strip them of their power over you. Remember, they are performing a play, and a play is nothing without an audience. If they are shouting into an empty theatre, the echo eventually drives them mad. But it doesn't hurt you, because you aren't in the building. So how do you physically walk out of the theatre? There is a specific tactical framework for this. Let's break down the mechanics of this force field, starting with the foundation. B stands for block, the nuclear option. And so many people resist this. They say, but if I block them, they'll know I care. They'll know they got to me. I want to look unbothered, so I'll just mute them or try to ignore it. And that is your ego talking. Your ego will keep you trapped in the cycle of abuse indefinitely. Who cares what they think? Let them think they won. Your peace of mind, your nervous system, and your future are worth infinitely more than projecting a false image of being unbothered to someone who doesn't care about you. You have to remove the visual trigger entirely. You cannot rely on sheer willpower to just not look while the cookie jar is sitting open on the counter. Blocking them is the digital equivalent of locking your front door. Set your accounts to private. Unfriend, unfollow, block across every single platform. LinkedIn, Venmo, Spotify playlists, Pinterest. They will use any obscure digital backdoor they can.